Well, I'm delighted to be joined now by David Smith, partner at Anthony Gold Lawyers, but also just been appointed new Policy Director for the Residential Landlords Association. So congratulations, David. What does it mean to you to receive that appointment?
Thank you. I was surprised when they initially approached me, but really happy. I think it's very kind of them, and also I hope a reflection of some of the work I've managed to do over the years. And for a lawyer, I think it's really fascinating because lawyers are obviously quick to sit down and criticise law and go around complaining about it. But it's quite nice to be on the other side in a position where I'm influencing the making of the law more. Obviously, it means I can't complain about it so much, but there we are. And the RLA's had a good record with targeted policy intervention, and especially at the moment with so much going on in Wales and in England. I think it's a really good time to get involved in some targeted policy intervention for the good of the sector as a whole, not just for landlords, but for tenants too, and in a way that will really make the sector better.
Absolutely. I think that's a very valid point about the timing because there's so much new regulation coming in. We've got mandatory landlord licensing. We've got landlords worried about the new tax reforms. Do you think it's going to kind of be the era of the Landlord Association where landlords adopt a much more professional attitude and want to have a voice at a policy level?
I think in the past landlords have missed a trick. Landlord associations do have a policy voice because it's always a numbers game for politicians. They want to know how many people you speak for. I shouldn't say this, I suppose, but please join. The more landlords who are prepared to join the associations, the more powerful the voice is. And obviously, I should say that the associations offer other things too. So it's not just money to get us to lobby on your behalf. I think obviously there has to be a level at which people have to accept there's only limits to what we can do. Landlords want us to do a great many things, and regrettably, those aren't all possible. There's a limit to what we can accomplish. Even with a Conservative government, people had great hopes that the Conservative government would be not touching landlords. I don't think it's going to be that way. This is a different era from the 1980s and the Conservative governments of that period, and that we need to accept that. But that said, there is going to be more regulation, but that doesn't mean that it all has to be bad. For good landlords, in some senses, targeted regulation, if it rubs out bad landlords, helps. Our concern, and always the concern really, is the regulation actually rubbing out bad landlords or just creating another hoop for a good landlord to jump through? And that is an area in which we are pressing government.
Particularly also to enforce existing legislation rather than bringing in new legislation.
Yeah, and this is a constant problem. I mean, government is much more likely to bring in something new which they can talk about than to concentrate on enforcing stuff that now exists. So what we're pressing for instead is giving local authorities more incentive to enforce what's there now, so that fine money goes into local authority pockets rather than into central government pockets as it currently does, and to find ways to get local authorities to gather the information they need to enforce, but without necessarily introducing licensing schemes as the only mechanism to gain information. There are other methods. And also more cooperative regulation, which the RLA tends to call co-regulation, but a system whereby local landlords can group together and present a front of good landlords to a local authority that allows them to regulate efficiently, so that local authority resources can then be targeted at the landlords who don't want to join those organisations and who aren't prepared to engage positively.
I think also, from my perspective, you are a great ambassador for the landlord community. You're very visible on the social web. You're a great contributor to forums and so on. Do you think that that's going to be part of your role within the RLA, to be very visible within the landlord community in many different areas?
Certainly one of the reasons that they were keen for me to join was because I do write and speak a lot. That's certainly important to them. For lots of reasons, not least because you have to go and speak to politicians. But yes, that may that help, and it's important. But it's not just about me. It's important for landlords as a whole to make their voice heard and to make good comment. Unfortunately, the television and things get dominated by the comments of some fairly unhelpful bad landlords. It would be great actually if more good landlords could come up and give their very sensible points of view, and we don't hear enough about that. We don't hear enough about the positive stories.
Absolutely.
You know, the really great landlords and tenants who talk to each other, the really great relationships. They don't make great TV, but they are the reality.
No,
and that's what we
absolutely.
need to get forward.
Indeed. I just wanted to finish, David, by saying I feel there's such a great synergy between Property Tribes, Anthony Gold, and the RLA, because we all share a very straightforward philosophy of best practice within the PRS, because ultimately if we create better landlords, we'll create a better experience of the PRS for tenants who are ultimately our clients.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think also though, and the PRS sometimes forgets this, there's actually a lot more synergy across the PRS than it likes to admit. Despite disagreements about specific areas, there's synergy between landlords, between agents, between surveyors, between sites like yours, between RA, and between tenant groups as well. They all actually want the same thing, which is a functional and effective private rental sector that houses people. The reality is, however much people would prefer the private rental sector not to be there, there is no other mechanism that is going to house people efficiently within the UK over the next 10 to 20 years. And that is the policy of the government. That is a reality. We need to deal with that reality. We need to make it the best possible private rented sector we can.
Well, hear, hear. And on that positive note, I'd just like to wish you the very best with your appointment as Policy Director at the RLA, and also to thank you for your contributions to Property Tribes and supporting the Property Tribes community. Great to have you on board and great to have your input. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.